All right. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's doing good today. My name is Luke Brasher. My father happens to be the pastor here at Central. Thank you all for loving him very well. My mom, obviously, here as well, Laurie. Thank you all so much for what y'all do for my family and just taking care of my parents. We really do appreciate it. My brother's here, so he appreciates it as well. I'm a physical therapist. More importantly, I'm a child of God. We are all called to be missionaries in our very own fields. Matthew 28:19, when you translate it, says, as you are going, so that means in anything you are doing, and I just happen to be a physical therapist. So that means I get to spread the love of the Lord with every patient that I come in contact with. That is my duty, is my job. More importantly, that is what I'm supposed to do. Right? It's not like you should, it's more like you have to, and you get to. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Naturally, preacher's kid. Came to know the Lord at a very, very young age. My testimony is not cool in any way. You know, everybody always has those cool testimonies. They hit rock bottom or something happened dramatically. That is not true with my story. And so I'm not going to make something up and, try to make myself sound a little cooler, because my testimony is really not even me. It's just about the Lord saving me, right? So I came to know the Lord at a young age, about 6 years old. Raised through church my entire life, obviously. And was a very, I'll be honest, a very Pharisaical Christian my entire life of kind of growing up. I did a lot more damage when I thought I was doing really, really good. But my perspective was really of, I just really want to be better than everybody else because I know what to do. And that is a very honest truth. And it's something I wrestle with still today of certain things. But the Lord got a hold of me again in college when I got to go. I played football at UAB, and I was a part of all the different things that a Christian athlete should be a part of, FCA and all the different Christian groups on campus. And my FCA director sat me down and started talking to me about multiple things and was like, "Hey, Luke, I was getting upset because there were people that were not acting like me, claiming to be Christ, and were trying to do all these things, right? But they just weren't, typical Southern Baptist boys like I was, right? They weren't like me. And so it would just frustrate me because they weren't acting the same way, but yet they still were coming to know Christ, and it just bothered me. Very legalistic on my part, and very Pharisaical on my part. And Tavon Arrington, one of my mentors, the FCA director, sat me down and was like, "Luke, your story is not their story, and their story is not your story, and they are coming to know Christ, but you were raised that way, so that you have a different perspective as they do." And so at that point, the Lord kind of sat me down and shook me and said, "Hey, you have to be Christ to all these people, and not just to yourself, not just act like you know everything." And so that kind of started my true shift of, hey, this is what I have to be to the world, right? Paul says, "I've become all things to all people." Doesn't mean he changed his ways of anything. He didn't become, all right, I'm going to say something. He didn't become a drug dealer so he can go witness to drug dealers, right? But he did go speak to those people, and he did try to relate to them on certain levels so that way he could win them for Christ. And so that's kind of what happened, is that my perspective shifted, and it was like, okay, hey, I need to meet people where they are and let the Lord change them and let me be a good influence on their life. And so then we get to where I am today. I'm married. My wife is over there in the blue. Her name is Julia. We just celebrated 2 years of marriage. And I know what everybody's thinking. No, we know more than all of y'all, so don't give us any marriage advice. I'm just kidding. I have it all figured out. Believe me, I'm always wrong. I got that part figured out. So we just celebrated 2 years. We're really excited about it. We go to Shades Mountain Baptist Church out in Vestavia. We've been going there for our entire marriage. So very plugged in there. Super excited. Have a great place that we live with. So we live in Irondale, and so I make the drive to Pell City every day. So now, testimony, like I said, it's not really a wowing testimony, but you know what? It is what the Lord has in store for me. It is His perfect will and His perfect plan for me. Going into physical therapy, all right? I am a physical therapist at Therapy South in Pell City. I've been a physical therapist for 2.5 years, and I love it. It's awesome. It's great. Truly get to meet people where they're at, and I'm sure if we raise hands, how many of y'all have been to physical therapy? Wow, everyone, pretty much. And as you know, your physical therapist is an important part because they are medical, right? All physical therapists now, as of 2004, if they're a true physical therapist, not a PTA, so when you first come into a physical therapy place, you will be evaluated by a physical therapist. All physical therapists after 2004, so primarily anyone that's under the age of 40, has their doctorate of physical therapy. So they have their doctorate in physical therapy. So they are trained to understand and see red flags, yellow flags, anything like that, to where if you're in their scope or within their scope, they can kick you out in a nice way and refer you out to someone that might be better suited to take care of you in that way. So if you ever were questioning of like, hey, what's your schooling like? It's 4 years of undergrad, 3 years of doctorate program. So it's a grad school, but it's an official doctorate now. There are obviously still people who practice who have their masters. I would argue that they have a lot of the same training that the doctorates do, but they get with the times, and so they have to have constant, continuing education, just like we do, just like the doctorates do. So that's what's going on with physical therapy right now. Excuse me. The other thing with physical therapy that no one really knows about this yet, and it's relatively new in the past year, is that physical therapy in Alabama is officially now in direct access. So if you walked outside, hopefully not, right, and you trip over the curb and you roll your ankle, you legally can go seek a physical therapist first to get your ankle checked out. That is within our scope of practice now. You don't have to go to the doctor, and which, I'm sure all of y'all have had an injury or you've had something going on with your back or your neck or something like that, and you feel like you have to go to the doctor, and then they're going to tell you, hey, well, I need to go send you to a specialist. And the specialist is going to send you back to the doctor, and the doctor is going to send you to the physical therapist. That's where you're going to end up, all right? The idea with surgery and all these different things now, hopefully you're not having to have a lot of surgeries, is that they're trying to mitigate and get rid of all these different things in between to where now you can just see the physical therapist, and if you do not get better with physical therapy, you will be sent back to the doctor. We at Therapy South do a good practice of physical therapy, subtle uplift of my company right there. So what we will do is we can do an evaluation. So let's say you roll your ankle, you trip over a curb. I'll do an evaluation. I'll ask you who your primary care doctor is, and that way I can submit what's called a plan of care to your doctor, and that way they are notified and they understand that you are under my current care as of now. And they can call me, they can do whatever they need to do. Or if you have an orthopedic of some sort, that is how direct access is working. So that is direct access. With Therapy South, I'll plug my company really quick because I'm very thankful to work for my company. My company is the primarily only faith-based company that outright says that we believe in the faith of Jesus Christ, and that is on all of our walls. If you go to Therapy South, you will see right when you walk in, dead center of a big board. It says faith, it says family, it says fitness, it says all of our core values, but faith is dead center. And make no remarks about anything. The faith is in the Lord Jesus Christ. We do have faith in you. We do have faith in our therapist, but that's the reason we put faith in the dead center. Okay. We have a Therapy South here in Springville, that way, right beside the Walmart. I know there are some patients that have been there that are here today. I can attest to all those people there. They are fantastic. Right now, you currently have Caitlin Roberti, who is the clinic director there, and then Hannah Davis, who used to be with us in Pell City. Caitlin also used to be with us in Pell City. But those two girls run Therapy South Springville. You also have Therapy South Trustful, which is great. I have a great therapist out there. His name's Taylor Payne. And then obviously we have Therapy South Pell City, which is where I am, and then my boss also. So we have a couple of locations around here. But honestly, any physical therapy should be good physical therapy. I just happen to be very biased about physical therapy. So let's talk about health habits. All right, everyone here growing, as we age, all right, let's address the elephant in the room. We're not getting any younger. So thank you guys for keeping my profession going. I appreciate it. So we're not getting any younger. What I can say about physical therapy is that we do have data, and we do have all these different things. Aches, pains, soreness, general muscle fatigue, general arthritis, that's the big word that scares everybody. All that is more than likely going to happen as we age, okay? We can't avoid it. It's something you just have to address. The best way to address all of these things are to continue moving, but also to be reasonable. I tell all my patients, especially after, whether it's surgical or non-surgical, I tell all my patients, you do what you can do, and if you physically can't do it, don't try to be a superhero. You leave that to me, okay, to figure out if you can or can't do it, okay? If you can't do it by yourself safely, don't do it. I'm going to say it again. If you can't do it by yourself safely, don't do it. There's nothing to prove. So, arthritis, bulging disc, all these different things. I'm sure everyone has heard of it, or let's do this. Let's not share too much medical information. Raise your hand if you've had an MRI, or you've had a bone scan, or you've had an x-ray, where the doctor has told you have bulging disc or arthritis. I'm also raising my hand at 28 years old. Yeah, well, that's exactly right. So I have all these issues too, but mine just happen to be what's called asymptomatic, and I've gotten used to them in certain things, in certain ways. I want to tell you, the diagnosis that you see from the MRI and the diagnosis from the x-ray does not define who you are or what you can or can't do. All the data shows that over the age of 55 and over the age of 65, 55% of people are going to have arthritis. At least 55% of people are going to have arthritis, a bulging disc, a rotator cuff tear, or some sort of labral tear. Okay? These things are normal and occurring in our bodies every day, but sometimes you notice it and sometimes you don't. And I understand what that means. Well, Luke, hey, if my body's messed up, shouldn't I try to fix it? And I would say, absolutely, that's something we should work on. But I have people all the time come in and they say, hey, my back doesn't hurt, but I had an MRI and the doctor told me I had 5 bulging discs going through my back. And now I feel debilitated. But before they went and had their MRI, they felt fine. They could do everything, right? But it happens, our brain plays a little game with us, is that once we notice that something is wrong with us, then we start trying to figure out everything that could be going on wrong with us, right? Just like if you notice when you look for a car, right? You're looking for a car online, you really, really like that car, or you're thinking about buying the car, what do you start seeing around the town? That car, right? It's because subconsciously you're looking for it, right? If you start telling yourself, hey, I can't do this, I can't do that because I have a bulging disc or I have a rotator cuff injury or anything like that, what are you going to start noticing with yourself? Oh, I can't reach my arm up, or I can't lean over to grab something because I don't want to further that injury. So which is why I tell everyone, hey, keep moving. Do what you can do. If you can't do it, back off. Okay? Just back off. That's fine. And then, here's a great way to go see a physical therapist and see, hey, if this is bothering you, let's figure it out and let's hang out and talk about it. I've been asked to talk to y'all about basic health tips when it comes to certain things. What I would tell everyone in this room, the best thing that you can do, the literal best exercise that you could do, is to get out and walk. Get out and walk. Get out and socialize and move around with somebody. Now, if you don't have somebody to move around, I would say you need to call somebody up in this church and y'all need to start having a Bible study while moving. So, get up and walk is the best thing that you physically can do. It is the best thing you can do. Because we notice as we stop moving, everything becomes more arthritic. Now, does everyone understand what the word arthritis even means? Or do we just kind of, you just hear it and you know what it feels like and you just get an idea? Arthritis, arthro, meaning joint, itis, meaning inflammation. So it's just the inflammation of a joint. And so typically when joints are inflamed, they do not want to move. Or when their joints are swelling, that's what inflammation is. When joints are swelling, they don't want to move, right? Or you have bone spurs, or you have all these different things. All that kind of falls into arthritis or in that sort of scope of pathology. So The one thing that you can do for arthritis, and I know this sounds crazy, believe me, I have this conversation every day, multiple times a day. And I'm not trying to brag on myself saying I'm right, but all the research shows that this is correct. The one thing you don't want to do with arthritis, when you have, let's take Beth here. Let's say Beth has developed arthritis in her knee, right? The one thing that you don't want to do if you have arthritis in your knee is what?
Stop moving.
Well, you don't want to move your knee, right? Because it hurts, right? That is common. But you know what all the research says to do? Move your knee. And it's so simple. And that's the part about my job that is so nice to have, because it is simple and it is simplistic. But the best thing you can physically do is to move around and to strengthen the muscles that move the joint, okay? So for instance, with the knee, we have the quadricep in the front of your leg. So everybody touch the front of your leg, the top part of your leg, all right? If you straighten your leg out, you should feel that muscle pop up in your hand. And if not, come see me. We got some other things to worry about. So when you kick your leg, right, that is your quadriceps. When you bend your knee, so if I bend it and I try to bring my heel towards my bottom, that's my hamstring. So if you reach behind the back of your leg and you pull that heel towards your bottom, you should feel your hamstrings turn on. Okay? Those are the two main muscle groups that move the leg. And so therefore, when your leg is hurting and you don't want to move those things, those are typically the things that weaken. It's all a cycle, and so if something moves, the muscles that move that joint start to atrophy. So they start to degrade, they start to get smaller, they start to get weaker. And as we all know, weak things typically break, right? You've seen a rotted piece of wood, you don't put something heavy on a rotted piece of wood. You put something heavy on a very strong piece of wood, and vice versa for our joints. It's very simplistic. The Lord created our bodies, and I am not one to claim that I am the total expert in the human body. But I do know the total expert in the human body, and he and I talk often. So the one thing that he has given to us is he gives us the clues and the ideas to properly take care of our body. And the Lord does, and I can assure you this, the Lord does want you active. That God did not create you to be on this planet, to sit down, to do nothing, to watch TV, to watch the news, to just read a magazine, to read a newspaper, to scroll on Facebook. He didn't create you to do that. And if so, that would have been in Genesis 1. You can laugh about it. You can smile about it, Jimmy. But if so, right, if the Lord wanted you to do that, that would have been mentioned in Genesis, wouldn't it, right? His perfect creation, or the idea of the perfect world in Eden, right? What did he create Adam and Eve to do? Did he create them to sit down and do nothing? No. They had jobs. They moved around. And I understand everyone here is retired, most likely. Here's the thing, though. That does not give you the get-out-of-jail-free card. Like, I've done my time. I'm out. The Lord has given me this, and I'm done. No, the Lord still wants you to move and to be active in other people's lives and to be a good steward of the life that he's given you. So, the Lord created Adam and Eve to move around the garden, to work the garden, right? It said that Adam would labor, right? And eventually had to get more labor because somebody ate an apple. But the idea, though, is that, hey, I know the story. We all would have eaten the apple, all right? I know that they're a representation of all man, all right? So, the idea, though, is that they were called to work. They were called to move. And if we are called to be a mirror of the Lord Jesus, I don't know if y'all know this or not, Jesus didn't really sit down that often. In case you notice, he was walking, he was moving, and he really didn't even start his ministry until he was 30. So he was moving around in a carpentry shop all day long. And that's what the Lord intended for us to do, is to move. And I understand that rest is important, right? You are supposed to rest. That is very biblical as well. But that doesn't mean rest 90% of the time. So what I would say, basic health tips, get up, move, and walk. Another basic health tip is pretty much get up, move, and do a little bit of resistive training. Resistive training can look like one or two things. It can look like moving weights, moving bands, moving anything at the gym, like the YMCA, or anything that y'all have here in Trussell, Argo, Springville areas. Or it could be moving your body weight. So standing up, sitting down from a chair. I'm sure if you've been to physical therapy before, you've seen that happen plenty of times too. I have plenty of patients that tell me that I make them stand up and sit down more than they ever would at home, but I always tell them I try to make practice harder than the game. That way the game's easy, right? And so one way you can do resistive exercise is to just move your body weight. Stand up, sit down, go up one stair, come back down one stair. Stay safe with it. Simplistic exercise, it's going to be fine. If your body is moving in a normal pattern, then you should be good. All right? And I wish I could kind of expound on normal patterns, but if you ever look down and you're like, hey, I'm doing this exercise, when in the world would I do this in real life? Probably not a good exercise, right? I'm sure you've seen those crazy people at the gym. They have like the bands kind of behind their head, and they're rotating backwards, and they're trying to do all these random things that you've never seen anybody ever do. I would say that's a bad exercise, right? So if you want to get you good at picking this cup up and setting it over here, then by golly, you grab 2 cans and you stack them on top of each other, and you put it down, set it back, put it down, set it back. Anything to create a repetitive movement is going to be okay. So anything that's a normal movement pattern, as long as it's not painful.
Miss Elaine?
Right, we have a couple of things here at Central. Way to go. We have some ladies here that have their last class next week, correct? For exercise class. And that exercise class is good and it's great. And I think everyone here, if you have questions about exercise, you should go. But I will say this, they're not starting back until September. But I will say that is a great way to get moving. Is it every
Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, which all training when it comes to physical activity and exercise is pretty much 75 minutes of what's called vigorous exercise a week, or 150 minutes of moderate exercise. So it's pretty much 30 minutes walking a day for 5 days a week is pretty much what the general standard is for everything. So 3 days a week and doing resistive training exercises at how many, is it an hour or 45 minutes? An hour. That puts you at a perfect storm, and then kind of moving around and talking with everybody later too. So that is one thing I would definitely recommend. I pretty much always recommend any of the Civic Center style-based exercises. So I'm sure you've seen like chair yoga, I'm sure you've seen chair exercise, or they have chair Pilates now. Anything at that matter, I typically recommend, because I am always a very big fan of everyone moving their body, because that's what we're supposed to do. So, I got these last 15 minutes here. I was going to do this. Beth, I should have asked you if I can do this.
You can do this.
I was going to open it up for questions if anybody has a certain question pertaining to a certain topic. I was very base level and surface level when it came to everything. So if you'd like for me to expound on one thing, I will be more than happy to.
One thing I know that we struggle with as we get older is balance.
Right.
Talk to us about balance a little bit. How can we improve our balance and our stability?
Right. So with balance and stability, the one thing that people don't understand, they think that when balance goes out, that it's something wrong with them in a sort of case. Balance is something that's trainable, just like your muscles are. So the reason that stereotypically, and I'm going to throw this out here, I understand vertigo and I understand other central nervous system issues that can cause loss of balance. But stereotypically with balance, the reason you don't have good balance is because you're not ever challenging yourself to have good balance. Does that make sense when I say that? So as we age, we slowly start to walk slower. And as we walk slower, we're on 2 feet more often. So therefore, you're going to lose the ability to stand on 1 foot more often, because you are slowly picking your feet up and trying to keep yourself more stable. Obviously, you're trying to be safe, but in regards to that, that's going to degrade your chance to stand on one leg. With balance, this is what I tell people to do. It's the corner of the wall right there. So obviously the corner of either wall. I tell people to stand in the corner of the wall and put a chair behind them. Okay? And then I want them to practice feet together. Left foot in front of right foot in front of left foot. Anything like that with a chair behind them, and as long as someone, if you feel really unsafe, someone's with you. But you can balance and use the wall as support. So with balance, that is the primary goal, is that you want to be able to practice things that you are not good at, right? Nobody likes to do that. and I tell my patients all the time, right? I'm going to be the guy that puts a belt on them, like a gait belt, right? I'll put a gait belt on them, and I'm going to make them do something that they would never do at home, which is stand on one leg and try to come up on their toe. Like, really, when are you ever going to do that within your right mind, right? When are you ever going to do that? At typically a certain age. When will you ever do that? Probably never. But it makes something challenging for you. So therefore, if you can do that, then you can do something a little bit easier, which is typically 1 foot on the ground, right? So that's what I would say. You can train balance by using the corner of the wall, a chair behind you. And if you need to kind of practice and keep yourself sturdy and upright, then you can use the wall on either side. And obviously that chair's behind you in case you kind of start leaning back and you have to take a seat in the chair. So with balance, it is trainable, just like your muscles are trainable. But the primary reason is because we stop doing things that challenge our balance. That does not mean, please hear me when I say this, that does not mean to go outside and randomly challenge your balance. Okay? Please don't do that. Because if so, I'm going to say I never told you to do that. Blame the doctor or something else, not me. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, son. Is there anything you can do in the bed before you get out for the morning that will help you not to hurt as you're moving about the morning getting ready?
Right. There are certain things that you can do in the bed, and which is why if you have low back pain or if you have any other sort of thoracic pain, I typically give these as my first couple of exercises for my patients because they have no excuse, because I do it all to where you could do them in a bed, right? And you're going to be in a bed at least twice throughout the day, one in the morning and then one when you go to bed at night. For general pain, what I would say is that you could typically bend your knees, and I know I'm kind of sitting behind something here. You can bend your knees, lay on your back, and I'm sure you've done this exercise before, and you rock your legs to the left, hold for about 3 to 5 seconds, and then rock your legs to the right. What that's going to do is that should loosen up your lumbar spine, your low back, and your hips to kind of wake up and get ready for the morning, okay? So you're going to kind of rock back and forth, kind of control it a little bit. And then typically a lot of people follow up with what's called a single knee to chest stretch, which is like bringing your knee towards your chest. Obviously, if you've had a hip replacement or some other major issues, this is very generalized, then you're trying to stretch it out, okay? And you can hold it there. And then kind of get moving from the day. Stereotypically, when we're talking about people who are aging, typically high blood pressure is an issue, right? We typically all have high blood pressure issues as we age a little bit because it's harder for our body to regulate. Another thing that I recommend is when you sit up from the bed, and most of you probably already do this, sit still for 10 seconds, then stand up, stand still for about 10 seconds, and then begin moving, right? Your blood pressure has to regulate between multiple different positions, and as we age, typically it gets harder for our blood pressure to regulate. That is stereotypically why when you sit up, you may feel woozy-headed, because your blood pressure is different laying down than it is sitting, and it's different sitting than it is standing. So that's probably why you're feeling a little woozy, if you ever wondered that. It's called orthostatic hypotension.
And part 2, sitting at a table for dinner, talking to friends, and then you stand up and everything hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to sit and do something before you stand up so you don't have to stand there for a second and then get going?
Seatless.
So she asked if there was a way, if you can do any exercises sitting down, that way it doesn't hurt as bad when you stand up. Yes, there is. I mean, you could march in place, you can kick your legs out, kind of to shake them out, right? Anything to move your joints before you need to physically move, which is going to move your joints, is going to be okay for you, as long as it's not painful. Another thing that my knee just did this, and I have to also relay to you, because I answer this question every day. If your knee pops, or your shoulder pops, or your hip pops, or your ankle pops, literally, if any joint pops, and it's not followed by excruciating pain, it's totally okay. It's normal. Or if you turn your head and you hear a popping or clicking sensation, but it doesn't hurt, it's okay. It's going to be fine. A lot of times our body just slowly kind of degrades, and so sometimes you have to kind of move back and forth to kind of pretty much give our body what's called its own WD-40, typically what's called synovial fluid in those joints. If you've been sitting still for a long time, it needs to kind of start working its way back into the joint. It's kind of like the joint lubricant for it. And so it needs to work its way back in the joint, and once it works its way back, it'll have less popping and clicking. But as long as you are not in pain, please, it's okay. Seriously, I promise, it's okay.
You stated that we could walk in after an injury if you don't need a referral and the insurance is okay?
Correct. So you can walk in. What I would do with any physical therapy place, I would call them and let them notify if they have any opening position or opening appointment slots, just like your doctor, right? I will say this. Therapy is not like an urgent care where like you seriously just rolled your ankle. I should have prefaced this. It's not an urgent care where you roll your ankle and you just walk in and have an appointment, because a therapist is typically booked up throughout the day. So if you do roll your ankle, you do not need a referral to come in, but I would recommend calling and saying, hey, I just rolled my ankle. Can I please go in? And if a good therapy place, they will ask you for your insurance card and they will ask you for your insurance information and verify. I know Therapy South does this. They will verify your benefits and explain those to you as if you're going to have to pay anything out of pocket, like a copay. Most people here are probably on Medicare or Medicare Part B. So for the most part, you can do that, but you're going to need, obviously, verification of benefits from our front office coordinators, who are all trained in doing that.
That's
So
been,
are you saying that, like I could go every Monday and just present myself if I had an appointment without a doctor's permission?
Right, so she's asking if she could go every Monday and present herself without a doctor's permission. So the law states in Alabama that physical therapists can treat you within 30 days, and then they have to refer you out if you don't get better within the 30 days. Or a typical therapy plan of care is typically anywhere from 8 to 12 visits. And so what that basically means to us is that we're not trying to treat you every day or twice a week or 3 times a week for the rest of your life. I want to make that clear. A good therapist is not trying to do that. And while we may enjoy certain patients, and we would love to do that, that is not standard of a good physical therapist, because a good physical therapist is trying to make you better to where you can get out and go on your own and do the things that you want to do, and you don't need them. You only need them when you're hurting or when something is wrong, right? So with the referral, we're going to take the referral or non-referral for that matter, and we're going to treat within that plan of care that we make ourselves. I don't know what your plan of care could be because I'm not evaluating you currently right now. So, but they're going to do the same thing though. They're going to take you, they're going to evaluate you, and they're going to tell you how they feel and what everything is. They'll typically do what's called a progress note on you, anywhere from the 8th to 10th visit, and they kind of circle back with you and check on, hey, are you meeting your goals? Are you doing all the things you need to do? And if you're not meeting your goals and you're not getting anything, like you're not getting any better, then that is within our scope to refer you out to another, typically orthopedic doctor, right? That's what we're going to do. If I can't take care of it, and this is standard for me, this is Luke, this is not every physical therapist, but if I see a direct access patient and I can't make him or her feel better in a couple of visits, like 3 to 4 visits, and it's not changing at all, then I typically refer out, because musculoskeletal issues can somewhat resolve with certain things that I do and that I'm trained to do. And if it doesn't get any better and I suspect something more sinister, then I will refer out. And that's what every therapist is going to do.
And what about pain blocks?
Pain blocks, what about them?
You like them?
Do I agree with pain blocks? I think modern medication is very good. I do think that our culture has been an instant gratification culture. And that also trickles down to y'all. I understand that my generation is very instant gratification. But I will say this, and I will pick on some of y'all's generation too. Y'all have absorbed that as well. That if you hurt, you think you can go get an injection, it go all the way completely away and somehow fix a problem that's been there for 50 plus years. It's not going to happen, right? More than likely. Now, here's the thing though. I understand that the Lord also works in modern medicine, and He also works through miraculous ways too. So don't get me wrong when I say that. I do believe that those things can be working in tandem together. But pain blocks, I mean, it's all different to whatever the person is. So I'll refer back to the classic physical therapy school answer as it depends. of whether or not that pain block is going to do well. I have people that have pain blocks and they do really, very well, and I have people that do pain blocks and nothing happens.
Yeah.
It's just the honest truth.
I was just told that with Medicare, you get a dollar amount. It's not based on visits, the number of visits.
Right, so getting to the scheme of things, so that is true that they give a certain dollar amount, but it just depends on how many visits are approved for that dollar amount that they bill out. That's a very niche thing to talk about. So it is a dollar amount, but it's the same thing of like having a $40,000 surgery versus a $20,000 surgery. But I would argue that the idea is that they're going to try to get you better within the next couple of visits, and if they're not getting you better, then they should refer out. But it technically is a dollar amount in this grand scheme of things when it comes to referral or when it comes to reimbursement rates.
Can rotator cuff get better without surgery?
Absolutely. All the research shows that, don't get me wrong, I'm going to preface this, and I think there are plenty of times where people need rotator cuff surgery, but all the follow-ups that we're seeing now is that a year out conservative care and a year out surgical care when it comes to rotator cuff, the outcomes are almost the exact same. But I will preface this to my surgeon friends who refer to us, and tip my hat to them, is that if there is something that is nagging you and it is a very constant pain, and you've exhausted conservative care, which means you've exhausted physical therapy and you've tried physical therapy, and it does not get better, then I would say absolutely you are a great surgical candidate. But then again, I'm not a surgeon. And I'm also somewhat biased when it comes to physical therapy. But I also know that physical therapy might not be best for everyone, and there's certain injury. So you might need something else. But yes, a rotator cuff can technically heal and get better without surgery.
But inflammation will sit up in your shoulders, on the inflammation, arthritis.
Right, so arthritis is going to happen relatively anyway, and inflammation just means swelling, and so yes, that will happen, but what we do see is that if we continue to not move the shoulder and it becomes weak and it becomes atrophied, then we have an even higher result of further decreasing prognosis. So yeah, you're gonna, you have any injury, right? Any injury, you roll your ankle, you hit your knee on a wall, literally anything, naturally it's gonna swell up. So don't think that swelling is the end of the world. That's a body's natural response to bring blood flow to that area and then heal the area and then come back out, right? But the idea is that people hit their knee, it swells up, they don't wanna do anything, and so that swelling stays there, and they stop moving, because it hurts to move your knee, right? And then the swelling just stays there and stays there and stays there. And as we know, our muscles use what's called the muscle venous pump and help pump that blood back up to the heart. And so the more that we just sit there and don't do anything, the more it's going to pull there, which is going to hurt more, and our body detects that as pain occasionally. So it's a bad cycle to be in. So which is why I tell people, move if you can, and if you can't move, to go seek medical advice.
What about ice versus heat? Whatever.
Right, ice versus heat on anything. Ice, I use ice on something that is heavy swelling, and that's very what's called acute, so within 2 weeks of the injury, okay? If you've had a nagging and chronic issue, I typically use heat, okay? So with arthritic joints, I typically use heat. The only issue is, if you use heat on a joint that's swelling, it's going to bring more swelling. But if your idea is that my joints hurt when I move because they're so stiff, I still use heat, just because heat is going to loosen things. But I will not lie to you, and I will tell you exactly what the research says, is that when it comes to thermal modalities, which is ice or heat, there is generally no major difference. It is clearly a patient preference on what feels better to them. I also will say this, that 15 to 20 minutes is the maximum amount of time that you need to be on a heating pad or an ice pad. Maximum time, take it off for an hour, and then you can ice it or heat it again.
What about a TENS machine?
A TENS machine. I was waiting on that question. So a TENS machine is just an electrical stimulation unit, right? I'm a fan of it. The research on that is 50-50. So it's good, and if the patient thinks it feels good and really changes things with them, then I'm all about it. I will put stim and ice, stim or heat on someone if it makes them feel better. There is technically nothing going on further level than surface level with the TENS unit. And so that's kind of what it is. If the TENS unit makes you feel better and you are within your right to use a TENS unit, as long as you don't have, all these other medical issues, you need to go seek your doctor and make sure they say you're okay to use a TENS unit. Like, we don't want a TENS unit with a pacemaker, all these different stimulators, and you don't want electrical with electrical, pretty much. Then you are free to use it, and that's fine. I would still follow back to 15 to 20 minutes and then cut it.
Well, I heard this comedian say the reason that we walk like we do, our little shuffling steps, is because we buy our shoes at Walmart and we forget to cut plastic.
That's true. That's true. That's something to think about. Something to think about. That's awesome.
Did you talk about dry needling?
Oh, my mom asked if I talked about dry needling. Dry needling is it's acupuncture, right? It's that same acupuncture needles. I'm dry needle certified, and so it's acupuncture needles. And what a physical therapist will do, normally acupuncture, you have a body chart, and it has all the different pinpoints that you need to hit, and you have to hit all those different points, and that's it. We go after what's called trigger points with dry needling. And so my trigger point could be here, it could be here, anyways, and we can go directly into the muscle belly, try to loosen the trigger point, for better words, and then follow up with electrical stimulation, or they don't have to do that, to see if we can cause that muscle to relax and calm down and give you some relief. So if you've ever wondered about dry needling, that's what dry needling is.
And you're certified in that?
I am, yes ma'am.
Well, I was on a trip and I was nauseated, and there was a lady on the trip that did whatever you call it, and she had needles in my hands, every finger, and it was hard for me to get around like that, but one of the guys said, well, that made Dale want to keep his hands off me with all my needles.
That's true. Right, you're right. I'm sure Mr. Dale didn't want to, Edward Scissorhands, or Edward. Yes, ma'am.
We couldn't hear what she said.
She was talking about that she was nauseated, and a lady performed acupuncture on her hands with multiple needles throughout her hands. Which, by the way, I'm not an acupuncturist. I'm a dry needling.
Totally different.
Totally different. So that she's going for pinpoints on the map, of the body map, and trying to do things. That's not what I do. So I'm not making people look like Edward Scissorhands. Nor am I getting you to stand up and walk around with a needle in. So sleep safe at night, knowing that.
All right, one other question. What about collagen supplements?
Collagen supplements. So I'll also preface this, that's out of my scope of practice.
Okay.
I can't really attest to anything medicinal. I can attest that you can look up the research on certain things, and I can say that because it's technically not a over the counter or it's not a prescribed medication. Collagen supplements do typically well. Collagen is what makes up our cartilage in our body, and so there is good research and good evidence that collagen supplements can help you, whether that's taken in pill form or in powder form. So it does well. I'd say the same thing about when it comes to all things that's like vitamins. Obviously refer to your doctor for certain things, but if the doctor's okay with it, you can take it and you can go for it. I'm not saying I would throw my hat on that and say I live and die by this standard. I'm still live and dying by the standard of please move your body and please strengthen your body whenever you can. So.
All right, any other questions?
If someone were to come that just made an appointment, do they need MRIs and X-rays, or how would you deal with that if I just came in and said my back hurt?
Right. Funny enough, Ms. Rose, I get that a lot, actually. So people come in and say, I don't have an x-ray, I don't have an MRI, my back hurts. How are you going to do anything? To which I would say, I'm glad that my 3 years of schooling has entertained you enough to come see me. But we are trained to go through a movement pattern course of certain things and try to figure out what is the issue. Not saying that we are as good as an MRI or as good as an x-ray. I will never, ever say that, because clearly they can, that's showing you what's going on behind the scenes. But I'll also tell you that sometimes the things that come up in the MRI and x-ray are not the symptomatic tissue that's hurting you. And so, for instance, with a low back pain, I typically take my patients through a movement screen and a movement test and see what movements are more provocative than the other ones. And then I have a way of going through things, and just like all the therapists, every therapist may have a different way, but most therapists are going to have a good way, and we intervene at that thing. So a lot of people just think that physical therapists are there for post-surgical routes, but we are trained to also do conservative and non-surgical routes. So we can just take you in and say, hey, this is what I think the issue is. We don't diagnose as physical therapists. We can make a reference and likelihood diagnosis to the doctor, and they officially diagnose, but we still treat and we can get you better. That's the thing. So I may have a certain thing that's, I think it's this, or I think it's this. But at the end of the day, if you get better, that's all I really care about.
I had a hip replacement, and I told the doctor that I had a lot of back pain, and he said, most people think it is your back when it's your hip, and I have no more back pain after the hip surgery.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. A lot of times our body can have what's called compensatory patterns. So our body's a really, really good compensator. And one part of the body can cause pain in the other part of the body because it's faulty. And whether or not you fix one and the other one fixes itself, or vice versa, it's kind of like a chicken or the egg. And at the end of the day, for instance, if someone comes to me with hip pain, I always check their back. Vice versa, if they come with me for back pain, I always check their hips. Because at the end of the day, and I'm being very, very honest with y'all, I want you to get better. And whether or not I think the problem originated from one area or not, or vice versa, the other area, I truly, at the end of the day, I care, but I don't care because I want you to get better. And therefore, I'll treat both in that area. And a good therapist will do the same. Just like if you go for knee rehab, and there are people in this room who can attest to this, you go for knee rehab, sometimes you walk out going, man, my knee is really sore. And sometimes you walk out going, oh my goodness, my glutes and my hips are so sore. And it's because everything falls in line. It's a compensatory pattern. So we're going to work on things that could influence the other thing.
Well, I had an ablation surgery, and they pulled my back out of alignment about 1.5 inches. And I was that close to being paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
And the chiropractor worked with me slowly until he could make an improvement, and I lost the use of my left leg. And it was a year in recovery from having an ablation. The ablation worked, but they overlooked it.
I don't know.
All right, anything else? Well, don't anybody leave until we get a picture. We want to get a group picture with Luke, and then I think also we want to get we're going to try maybe get the kids back down here and do a family picture.
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Just kind of a warning, don't go home and try that thing in the corner unless you are sure you're strong enough to do that.
Right. Yes.
Because if the other muscles in your body can't hold you up, then the wall is gonna have a hard time.
Right. Yeah. And which I'll also, all the things that I said today, please, if you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel safe doing it, once again, don't try to be a superhero and try to do it. Okay? Is that fair?
We may have need of a therapist over here.